New Year's Eve. For a lot of people, it's the biggest party night of the year. For me, that year, it was the exact opposite. I'd already spent Christmas with my family, and when New Year's rolled around, I found myself with no plans and no one to go out with. So I decided to just stay in. I kicked back at home, completely alone, had a couple of beers, and just watched TV for the entire night. I watched the whole Times Square celebration, the ball drop, all of it. And after that, I just switched over to some older holiday movies, letting them play in the background. I wasn't even really tired. By the time 2 a.m. rolled around, I'd been sitting on that couch for so long I felt restless, like I needed to get up and do something, anything, just to move. I walked over to the windows and looked outside. It was snowing a bit, a gentle, quiet snowfall, not too heavy, but enough to coat everything. I knew it was cold and dark out there, obviously, but in that moment, a walk just sounded really nice. Peaceful. So I made the decision. I grabbed my heavy jacket, my hat, my gloves, and I headed out the door to just walk around my own neighborhood. The first thing I noticed was the silence. It was surprisingly quiet outside. I mean, it was 2 a.m. on New Year's. I figured there would be some leftover noise from parties, people coming home, something, but there was nothing. All the houses just had their outdoor Christmas lights glowing, and the streets were completely empty. No cars driving through at all. It was calm, it was empty, and it was actually very peaceful. I started walking with no particular destination in mind. I'm not even too sure how long I was out there for. I'll admit I wasn't fully sober, so my sense of time was a little fuzzy. I was just zigzagging through the neighborhood streets, taking turns at random with no real direction or route planned. Eventually, my wandering led me to the entrance of the local park. The path leading into it hadn't been shoveled since that morning, it seemed, but there were only maybe 2 inches of snow, so I thought, why not? I figured the slight change in scenery would keep the walk interesting. I started walking down the path, the snow crunching softly under my boots. I walked a little ways in before I started to notice 2 things. First, the snow was actually getting deeper and harder to walk through than I'd thought. And second, there weren't any lights on. I'd walked this path at night before, and it always had these small, dim street lamps lining the trail. But I guess for the winter, or maybe to save power, they had turned them all off. The darkness ahead of me was complete. So after just a few minutes of pushing forward, I decided to turn back around. It was too dark, and the walk was getting difficult. I dragged my feet through the snow, retracing my own steps, walking for maybe a minute back the way I came when I saw something pretty weird. Right there, parallel to my own boot prints, was another set of tracks, a fresh set, and they were going right along mine from just a few minutes ago. My heart did a little stutter. Someone had to have been walking right behind me, stepping exactly where I had. And honestly, the way they lined up perfectly, it kind of looked like they had been following me, given that there were absolutely no other shoe prints on this untouched path before I had arrived. But I didn't see anyone, not a soul. I stopped, my breath making clouds in the air, and I tried to see where this other set of tracks went. I followed them with my eyes and found that they led off the main trail, veering away into the deep, dark areas between the trees. Areas so black I couldn't see a single thing. A cold feeling that had nothing to do with the temperature settled in my stomach. For all I knew, there could have been someone standing just 10 feet in front of me in that darkness, and I wouldn't have a clue because it was absolutely pitch black. I quickened my pace, finally getting off the trail and back onto the lit neighborhood streets. I tried to shake it off, to tell myself it wasn't something to worry too much about. I admit it could have been me being tipsy and not realizing the strangeness and the possible danger I was in, especially with those tracks leading off the trail and straight into the darkness. At the time, I tried to assume it was just a really big coincidence. I got away from the park and walked further into my neighborhood, not going directly home yet. I walked for another 15 minutes or so, just trying to clear my head. Not that I was looking very hard, but I didn't see anyone else out, so I thought by then I was all good. The weird feeling was fading. When I finally made it back home, I came inside, took all my winter stuff off, and figured I'd take a hot shower and then hopefully be tired enough to just get into bed. I started walking up the stairs, and it wasn't until I was already halfway up that I realized how dark it was at the top. The upstairs hallway lights were off. This caught me completely off guard, because I'm the kind of person that, I'll admit it, leaves all the lights on all day. I hadn't even been upstairs since waking up in the morning, so I had definitely 100% left the lights on up there. I paused on the stairs.
I know this might sound like some small thing that I just fixated on, but I think even if I were fully drunk, I'd still have known, deep down, that those lights were left on. This was wrong.
I cautiously walked the last few steps up to the hallway, reached my hand out in the darkness, and flicked the light switch back on. The hall was now brightly lit, empty. I didn't really know what I was looking for, though. My pulse was starting to hammer in my ears. I walked slowly through the hallway and just peeked my head into each of the rooms, the bathroom, the spare room, my bedroom, seeing if there was anything obvious, anything out of place. I made sure to close each of the doors tightly after looking in, a nervous habit, which is why, after checking the last room and turning back around to face the hallway, I felt my heart just stop. The first door, the one right by the stairs, was wide open again. To me, that was it. That 100% confirmed that someone was inside my house right now. My mind flashed to the footprints in the park. After freezing up for a few seconds, standing there in the silent hallway, I called out, my voice shaky. "Who's there?" I was scared to move. They could have been right there in that room, waiting, or they could have snuck past me downstairs and really been anywhere at this point. I remember taking slow, careful, and quiet steps down the hall, feeling this huge wave of adrenaline and a sinking, awful feeling in my gut as I approached the dark doorway of that room. And then I woke up. And no, this wasn't all a dream. I woke up laying on the floor in the middle of that same hallway, my head spinning with a horrible, crushing migraine. I think only about 10-ish minutes had passed between then and now, and it was immediately apparent that I'd been attacked and knocked unconscious. I had no recollection of anything but the moments leading up to whatever the hell happened in that doorway. Even my vision was blurry and fading in and out. I called 911 right away, fumbling with my phone. Whoever it was that broke in and attacked me was long gone, but I tried to give the police an account of everything I could remember. It still bothers me so much, to this day, that a part of my memory was just blacked out like that. I likely came face to face with the guy, probably enough to get a good description of him. Hell, I might have even known exactly who it was, yet it's like my own head is hiding it from me. After that night, the police updates were minimal, and nothing ever led to anything significant. I don't know who it was or what his intentions really were, but I wouldn't doubt it. I really wouldn't doubt it if he didn't even want me to wake up.
I work at a local ski resort in a small mountain town. My official title is maintenance and security, but really my job was just cleaning and general maintenance stuff. I was only somewhat trained for security because we'd had a few break-ins overnight in the past, people trying to steal skiing and snowboarding gear, or to try using the slopes while we were closed. After several instances, the company changed the schedules around to have 2 people working overnight. The idea was we'd do our regular work while also being a presence to deter any possible trespassers. We didn't have cameras or anything fancy, so this was the solution. Honestly, the security part of my position never really affected my day-to-day job because after we started working overnights, we didn't have any more people try breaking in for months. The most we had was someone coming up to the door and trying to look inside, but aside from that, it was always quiet. Also, like I mentioned, I never worked alone on these overnight shifts, or at least technically not alone. My coworker, Matthew, was always scheduled for the same shift, but he worked on the opposite side of the resort. The place was split into 2 large sections with just a single long hallway connecting them. Sometimes, with the sheer size of the buildings and the work we had to do, I wouldn't even see Matthew for days or weeks at a time. So even though I wasn't technically alone, it really felt like I was working alone most nights. This particular night had started out the same as usual. I clocked in and started cleaning up the main floor. The place gets really messy during the busy season, so even though it wasn't the hardest work, there definitely was a lot to do. The first hour went by pretty quick. I was still in the large main room when I heard a sound. It sounded like a tapping noise, a light, repetitive tap, tap, tap. Maybe someone tapping on a window from the outside. I set my cleaning things down and walked over to the front of the building where most of the big windows were. I didn't see anything at first. It was just dark and snowy outside. But then I walked right up to one of the windows and pressed my face close, and I noticed footprints, fresh footprints in the snow, right under the window. They went right up to the glass, then turned and went around to the other side of the building. I wasn't too sure what to think about it. I threw my coat on and stepped outside into the freezing air to look around. I thought it might have been someone lost or a guest who'd left something behind, and if it wasn't, then I had to tell them to leave. That was the job. But as soon as I got out there, shivering, I saw the footprints led from the window to the edge of the parking lot, which had already been plowed. So from there, on the bare asphalt, I had no idea where they went. It was pretty weird, but it was way too cold and dark to be walking around the whole perimeter of the huge building. I went back inside. I got right back to work, trying to put it out of my mind, hoping whoever that was wouldn't come up again. I want to say about 30 minutes passed. By then, surely the falling snow had covered up any of those tracks outside, so I figured even thinking about it wasn't worth my time anymore. That was until I heard a few doors open and shut from the direction of the long connecting hallway, and a few moments later, Matthew himself showed up at the entrance to my section. He looked distressed and kind of confused. When he saw me, he immediately asked, "What are you doing?" I looked around, confused myself, and just said, "I'm working." Matthew nodded his head, acknowledging it, but his expression was off. It was almost as if that answer didn't make sense to him. "Is everything okay?" I asked him. He said yeah, and muttered that he must have been tired or something, shaking his head like he was trying to clear it. Before he turned to leave, I mentioned that I saw some footprints in the snow outside and asked if it was him. He shook his head no firmly. I'd hoped that he would explain more about what he was so concerned about now that I'd told him about the strange thing I saw. From the way he was acting, I assumed something strange must have happened on his side too, but he didn't say anything else. He just left my section of the resort and went back to the other side. Now, me and Matthew weren't good friends or anything, just to be clear. Again, we rarely ever saw each other, so we weren't more than just acquaintances. He was also a lot older than me, so when we did talk, it was always just work-related, brief, and to the point. I'm mentioning this to give context on why I didn't question him a little bit more in that moment, or go over to his side right then to really try to figure out what was going on. I just let him go. I kept working, but I spent most of the next hour thinking about how strange of a night this was turning out to be. The footprints, Matthew's odd behavior, and just when I thought the rest of the night would go by without any more occurrences, I heard a loud bang from the corridor between the two sections. It sounded like maybe a door slamming with extreme force, or something heavy hitting a wall. It was loud enough to make me jump and drop what I was holding. That was it. I had to go looking to make sure Matthew was okay. I headed straight for the connecting corridor. It was empty and silent, so I continued on into the other section where Matthew worked. I called out his name. "Matthew?" Nothing. The vast open space of the resort's other half was eerily quiet. "You good?" I called again. I called his name over and over as I walked further in, and I got not even a sound in response. I started getting nervous, a prickling feeling on the back of my neck. And as I made it to the back of that section, my stomach dropped. The back service door was wide open. Snow was blowing in, creating a small drift on the floor, but it looked like the door had only been open for maybe a couple of minutes. I hurried over and looked outside into the blizzard. I didn't see anyone, but there, leading away from the building and heading up the resort toward where the dormant ski lifts were, was a single set of footprints. There was no reason Matthew should have been going out there, especially in this weather, without saying anything. This only made me even more nervous.
I called out Matthew's name again, shouting it into the wind, but the gusting snow just swallowed my voice. I started getting worried, like really worried now. I double-checked everywhere inside the building, storage closets, equipment rooms, everywhere. I didn't see him, and I didn't see any sign of a struggle. The only clue I had were those footprints in the snow leading out the open door. I ran back to my section, got my coat again, and hurried back to the open door. With a deep breath, I walked out and started to follow the footprints. They went way farther than I expected, leading across a wide open service area and then starting up the shallow base of the main ski hill. It was also dead quiet outside, just the howl of the wind and the crunch of my own steps in the snow. No other signs of anyone being out there. The footprints led me all the way out to the bottom part of the ski lifts and slightly up the shallow hill, and that's when I stopped. They led out of the cleared resort area and into the dense trees that lined the hill. There were no lights or anything out there, and from my knowledge, it was just a regular wild mountain forest past that tree line. My heart started racing a little bit more, pounding against my ribs, and I got the cold, certain feeling these might have not been Matthew's footprints I was following. I stood at the edge of the tree line, peering into the absolute darkness between the pines. "Matthew?" I called, my voice trembling slightly. "Are you out there?" There were several long seconds of silence, broken only by the wind. Then, in the far back, deep behind the first line of trees, I saw a figure move. It shifted into view and stood perfectly still, looking right at me. From what little the moonlight and snow-reflected light could show me, it was tall, and its silhouette didn't look at all like Matthew. I didn't wait another second. I ran. I ran as fast as I could back down the hill and toward the resort, my boots slipping and getting stuck in the heavy snow, causing me to fall multiple times. I scrambled back up each time, expecting a hand to grab my shoulder. Whoever was out there didn't follow me out of the trees, but I knew they were watching me. I crashed back through the service door, slammed it shut, and ran to the other side of the resort where the front desk was, using the landline phone to call the police. I wasn't sure what was going on anymore, but I wasn't taking any more chances looking on my own. Of course, being up in the remote mountains, the police were about a half hour away. I hid in a closet full of rental ski gear for that whole agonizing time, listening to the winds shrieking outside and the eerie, heavy calmness inside the empty resort. It was about 10-ish minutes into waiting that I heard it, a distant, muffled sound that might have been a door opening on the very far end of the resort. I didn't dare even try to see for sure. I held my breath, hearing nothing but my own heartbeat until the police finally arrived. Disturbingly, when they did a sweep, they found another set of footprints, fresh ones going back up to the very back door I'd used. So whoever that was out there in the trees had come back to the building, maybe looking for me. And it only took about 30 minutes after their arrival for the police to officially state Matthew as missing. Although from the officers I talked to, they didn't see any signs of foul play inside the resort, which made them think it was someone he knew, someone who got Matthew to let him in, or who led Matthew outside. Either way, once the footprints made it to the woods with the ongoing snow, there was no way to track them any further. For a while, I'm pretty sure I was actually a suspect, being one of, if not the last person to see him. But eventually, they were able to confirm I didn't have anything to do with it. The whole situation was really, really scary, and it's hard not to blame myself a little bit for how things went down. I feel like I should have done more somehow, but I also know deep down that if I had walked deeper into that forest to follow those footprints or had tried to confront that figure in the trees, there's a very real chance I would be missing right now too.